This meeting is called to order. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Community Redevelopment Agency Board meeting. Today is Tuesday, December 12th, 2023, and the time is now 6:01 p.m. Before we begin, I just want to remind everybody of our rules of civility and decorum. First and foremost, speakers must be addressed by the chair and not interrupt any speakers. Public comments must be addressed to the board as a whole and not to any individual on the dais or in the audience. Personal insults, attacks, and similar behaviors are strictly prohibited. Should you violate these rules, you will be warned, and should it persist, I will have to ask you to leave and you may be escorted out. All right, let's begin with the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. The invocation for this evening will be led by Board Member Hay, the Pledge of Allegiance led by Board Member Kelly. Let's all stand.
Let us pray. Father God, we are thankful for this day, a day that we have not seen and will never see again. Dear Heavenly Father, in this moment of unity, we invoke your presence in the Boynton Beach CRA meeting. Grant us the wisdom to be fair to all our citizens and staff, embracing diversity with open hearts. May your guiding light, Lord, be in the midst of our actions and our word, fostering a community where justice and compassion will prevail. We'll be so careful to give you all the honor and all the praise. For it's in Jesus' name that we pray. Let every heart say amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Huh?
The flag is a weird place.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Deputy City Clerk, if you could please begin the roll call.
Chair Pensurga,
Here.
Vice Chair Turkin,
Present.
Board Member Cruz,
Here.
Board Member Hay,
Here.
Board Member Kelly.
Here.
Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. We're moving on to agenda approval, additions, deletions, and corrections to the agenda. I have none for myself other than to ask my colleagues if you could take a look at section 15, CRA projects in progress. Which of those items would you like to hear from staff? And anything from staff that you feel must be heard in person this evening? Any requests from my colleagues? Under section 15, seeing nothing from staff?
If, because it just happened, if we could do a very brief, like a 5-minute overview of the boat parade, that would be great, if we can keep it short and sweet.
Can we do that? Okay. All right.
Because it was so great.
Yeah, listen, it was a great event. So let's do a quick recap on 15A. And I heard no other requests other than 15A. That concludes it for me. Let's begin with Board Member Kelly.
No.
All right, Board Member Hay,
No.
Vice Chair.
The only thing I would ask, if obviously there's consensus amongst my colleagues, I know that we're having the Unity project with the city side. If the CRA can help with any funds for that, they're in the planning process now. So know if you guys would be able to support that, or that's something that maybe staff can just partner with Catherine Montes about.
I'm actually not too familiar with the details of that event, Vice Chair, but I'm not entirely sure that that is under the purview of the CRA.
Okay.
Mr. Tack, are you familiar with this?
I'm not familiar with this, what you're talking about, but if it's a nonprofit that we'd be directly contributing to, Catherine can allude a little bit more on that.
Sure. So I'm not familiar with the scope of what this effort is. CRAs in general are not empowered to simply provide CRA funds for even the best of causes, even if those causes are within the CRA area. It's really got to be a redevelopment effort. So something like I'll just give an example, a breast cancer walk, even in the CRA area, is not something a CRA could contribute to. So I'm happy to look into whatever the effort is and let you know. But just as general stating, that's the role.
Yeah, no, I know. I know that they're looking at local vendors to participate. So I know we've done this in the past, and this is something that I don't want to speak on the city side. I don't want to get too confused, but if we can maybe talk offline then, and I'll give you the details.
Yeah, so Vice Chair, I think from what I understood you to say, if there's just a matter of communication and sharing information, the administrative staff, I'm sure they can accomplish that.
Yep. And then if that is a possibility, then I guess maybe we can bring that back to the board here.
We will look into it.
Perfect. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you. Board Member Cruz. All right, seeing nothing else, we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Again, we are pulling item 15A. We have a motion from Board Member Cruz, a second from Board Member Kelly. All those in favor of the motion to amend the agenda say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, the motion passes unanimously. We're moving on to legal. Counsel, did you have any updates for us?
No, good evening, Catherine Rossmell, Lewis Longman, and Walker. Just happy holidays, everyone.
All right, thank you. Moving on to informational items and disclosures by board members and CRA staff. Let's begin on my right this time. Board Member Cruz, any disclosures or informational items?
I have no disclosures for this meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Vice Chair?
None, Mayor or Chair.
Thank you. Board Member Hay?
I have none.
And Board Member Kelly?
I have no disclosures. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on to public comments. The public comments section of this meeting is for public comments and items on the consent agenda or items that are not on the agenda. All right, so again, consent agenda items or items not on the agenda. As always, 3 minutes per person. If you'd like to speak, we'll begin with those in person, after which we will take those online. The floor is open for public comments under consent and those items not on the agenda. Seeing no one approaching the podium, in-person public comments is now closed. Ms. Kerfman, is there anybody online with their digital hands raised?
No hands are raised at this time.
All
Thank
right,
you.
with that, the entirety of public comments is now closed. We're going to move on to consent agenda. Are there any items under consent agenda that my colleagues would like to pull? Item section 10.
Not for me, Chair.
All right, nothing? All right, seeing no requests, may I have a motion to approve
So moved.
the entirety of
Second.
consent? I heard a motion from Board Member Hay. I heard a second from Vice Chair Turkin. All right, all those in favor of the motion to approve the entirety of consent agenda say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion passes unanimously. We're now moving on to CRA Advisory Board. Mr. Tack, was there any updates on that front?
The CRA Advisory Board meeting for December was canceled. We had a little bit of an issue with quorum. So I'm meeting with each one of the individuals individually to go through basically a CRA 101, if you will. We will be scheduling that here shortly. And it's my understanding that we had one of our members withdraw and that the city may be reappointing on the next commission meeting, if I'm not mistaken.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Tack on this matter? With that, we're going to continue. Now we're moving to section 13, old business. 13A is discussion and consideration of the responses to the second RFQ for the CRA owned property located at 401 411 East Boynton Beach Boulevard. Mr. Tack, if you could introduce the item.
All right. For the benefit of the public, the CRA received a letter of intent from the U.S. Post Office back in June 3rd of 2022. Due to the sale of the current USPS location located at 217 North Seacrest Boulevard, the USPS needs to relocate its retail operation and express the importance of maintaining the retail component east of I-95 within the downtown area. The USPS LOI proposed that the CRA issue a request for proposals to qualified parties to purchase CRA-owned parcels and construct a freestanding building that the USPS could lease on a long-term basis. The construction would include a 3,490 gross square foot retail post office with 22 parking spaces. The lease would be a 10-year firm initial lease with 2 5-year options, and that lease and rent is backed by USPS, which in turn is backed by the US Treasury. Upon our first attempt, we were not successful with our first RFP. As such, back in June of 2023, the CRA board authorized CRA staff to re-advertise the RFP, utilizing government solicitation tools and professional organizations with a wider reach, in addition to the previous outlets, and accept new proposals. On July 11th, the CRA board had a motion to publish, and we have, as of September 26th, had 2 proposals submitted, one from DMR Construction Services and one from Maple Tree Investments. I believe both of them are here. CRA staff has completed a review of each of the proposals for sufficiency, adheres to the requirements the financial components and other evaluation criteria. And if the board elects, each proposer will provide a brief presentation of their development proposals to you tonight.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Tack. At this point, I'd like to hear from the applicants. We have two of them. It doesn't matter which begins to me. Let's open the floor for about 12 to 15 minutes at most for the presentation. We'll hear for both parties and then we'll begin with questions from the board. All right, so will the two applicants approach the podium, or at least the first group, if whoever's available first? And do we have both of their presentations loaded?
Both of them should be loaded and available to go
Okay,
through tonight.
great. Yep, somebody just go. Please introduce yourself and state your name for the record. And could somebody give him the clicker?
Hello, I'm Steve Pataki with DMR Construction Services.
1 second, sir. Is the mic on?
It looks on. Can you hear me? Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a? Okay. Just tell you to turn? Sure.
Okay.
That
Okay.
works too.
Okay. So like I said, my name is Steve Pataki. I'm an executive with DMR Construction Services. Wanted to first thank you all tonight for letting us be here and make this presentation to you. We are very excited about the opportunity. Also here from DMR Construction Services is our General Superintendent, Rodney Locke. Additionally, our development team members, Brian Herbert of Gallo Herbert Architects and our attorney, Bonnie Miskell, both of whom are very familiar with the Boynton Beach CRA, are here as well. You can, next slide. There we go. So DMR is a general contractor and developer. We've been in business for over 30 years and have completed hundreds of projects, large and small. Everything from large multi-phased complex transit work to single family houses, commercial, industrial work. We've worked in all those markets. Our office is located very close by in Delray Beach, and we've got another office up in New Jersey that handles our work in the Northeast. One of several projects we have in pre-development right now in Palm Beach County is a larger headquarters in Delray, as we expect to be growing our presence here over the coming years. We did recently complete a residential development in Briny Breezes, working as a general contractor. We've recently been awarded a public works project in Palm Beach County that breaks ground after the new year. And we own several properties in Boynton Beach and Delray that are all in pre-development. I think the point being, we are a very well-established company with a growing local presence, and we are working with some local reputable consultants to help us work through the project. Being in the development world, we know that this area it has a lot of opportunities, both for us as developers and for the city in terms of making improvements. And we expect to be here for a long time and are very excited about it. If you could you switch to slide 11, please? It just gets the company information wrapped up with, so we can get on to the project. So as I said, we're a developer and general contractor. Our proposal reflects us working as a general contractor. That's our pricing included with the proposal. We don't rely on a third-party general contractor to build and manage the project. We would handle all the aspects of the development and construction ourselves with our consultants. We do self-perform some work in certain areas. Down here, we'd likely use local subcontractors as well as employ local workforce. Regarding our performance history and financial stability, we have been vetted and approved by many government agencies, both in the Northeast and in Florida, and we've successfully passed their pre-qualification process. We have a bonding capacity of $200 million, which we can share the evidence of with you. To get a bond for $200 million, you need to have a very long track record of successful project completion, sound financial management, and stability. We wouldn't need that kind of bond for this job, but I just want to give you an idea of the kind of company that we are. You can go to the next slide, please. So in addition to our public work, we also do a lot of residential work, some of which we are in pre-development now in Palm Beach County, as I mentioned. We are very experienced with land acquisitions as well as the entitlement process. And a big part of that process we know is having the right consultants on board to work with us, which I think we certainly do and have here with us tonight. Throughout our projects, we are regularly working closely with municipalities and agencies in terms of hearing everyone's priorities and concerns and making sure we sufficiently address them as we work through the process. It's the only way to get through these development deals. You can go to the next slide. This is the project I mentioned earlier in Briny Breezes, Gulfstream View Townhomes. On this particular job, we were a general contractor working for a private owner that we did several projects for. On the construction end of things, we handle the entire process from pre-construction planning and estimating to scheduling, logistical planning. We'll work directly with the CRA, the USPS, and our architect, Gallo Herbert, to develop the design documents to get them exactly where they need to be for everyone to have their concerns addressed with the right level of quality and content contained in them. In terms of the actual design and construction of the post office, for us, it isn't a complicated project. On paper right now, it's a fairly straightforward bit of site work and a fairly simple shell structure. So we don't believe that that's the challenge here, barring what may still be unknown at this time. But like a lot of projects, it's getting to the point of starting construction where the difficult part is. You can go back to slide 3 now. So in terms of our proposal and what we proposed here, there are a lot of complicated spreadsheets behind some of these deals, but the premise here is pretty simple. We have land acquisition costs, we've got the costs of development and construction, and on the income side, it's the USPS rent. The construction costs, that's what we know. In terms of the acquisition costs and the rent price, those are the two variables. So the lower the rent offered goes, the lower the acquisition price has to go to make the numbers work. Vice versa, the higher the land acquisition, the higher the rent cost for the deal to make sense. In our proposal, we had a land acquisition offer for $120,000 associated with a base rent of $58 per square foot before expenses. We did request a tax abatement for the life of the lease. We understand this is the second time this RFP has gone out, and from what we understand, part of the concern with the initial offers was the rent offer as well as the land acquisition. So at this point, we do have some options available. I'm not sure if we're free to discuss them here, but in terms of reducing the land acquisition to lower the rent or raising the land acquisition and subsequently raising the rent, there's an unlimited amount of offers. We just need to understand where the CRA needs to be to make the project work. You can go to the next slide. So a significant part of the rent for the USPS will be the expenses, which we had at around $24, and that excluded our taxes, the property taxes, I should say. That covers a property manager, common area maintenance, and insurance costs. That totaled to around $83,000 per year. These are numbers from local companies, through our insurance agent, through local maintenance and management companies. So they're real. I think I'm saying this because it's important that you understand the value of the expenses in this calculation. We saw prior proposals and whatnot, and it seemed like some of them might not have had the value of the expenses covered. So we think it's important that you do take a look at that. It could be just misleading in terms of what the actual price the USPS would have to pay in the end. So with that, if you go to the next slide, I'd like Rodney to come up, and he's going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges.
Good evening, everybody, and once again, I'd like to thank you all for having us here for this presentation. Some of the challenges, I don't foresee too many challenges. Obviously, environmental unknowns could be an unknown that obviously we will not know until we get into the site. You never know what might pop up when we start digging for foundations and so on and so forth. Ability for UPS to engage quickly after sale, well, that would certainly be on their end and what their decision would be and what the outcome would be. Obviously, we all know that permitting can take some time as well. So whatever help we could get to help expedite permitting would be to everyone's advantage to get this building in place in a timely manner. And the speed of inspections and reviews and utility coordination, I don't really see too many issues with that. I have a long history in construction myself. I've worked in South Florida for well over 40 years in this market. I've done a number of projects in the area. I've done within the last 5 years, I completed a 55,000 square foot school out on Lyons, Divine Savior Academy. I ran that project exclusively, managed the whole thing out in the field. Somerset Academy, there was a phase 1, which was a cafeteria and classrooms, which I also managed. And then we followed up with the next phase, which was the auditorium. They all finished successfully. And then I also helped wrap up the Gulfstream Views project as well. I have an ability to build really great relationships with all the parties involved. Inspectors. I build a sense of camaraderie with the crews, and we get things done, and we get them done on time and successfully. So as far as challenges, I do not see too many challenges regarding this project. And that would be it. Thank you for your time. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you. Did that conclude your presentation? or
We
did
do
you
have a
follow-up?
couple more slides. If you could go to the
5
next.
more minutes.
5 more minutes, okay. So here is the original site plan that was included with the RFP. There were some difficulties with the truck access in the back through the alley. There really is not enough room to do this. So we did look at some alternate plans, which we will speak about in a moment. You can go to the next slide. So here is our construction and logistics plan, which includes some schedule information. This is based on that original plan. Things wouldn't change too much if the site layout changes a little bit. And the schedule that we had there for 9 months construction from start of construction, meaning permits and approvals are all in hand and we're ready to go, is something we're very comfortable with. Again, barring any of these unknowns that are underground or with utilities and whatnot. So we feel like, with fairly minimal disruption to the city, we can build
I
it.
might add, the access from the alleyway for a tractor trailer, there seems to be quite a few obstacles in there and really not enough room for a tractor trailer to maneuver in that area. So we have proposed an additional design.
Right, which we'll bring up on the screen shortly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next slide. With that, I'll introduce Brian.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Brian Herbert, Gallo Herbert Architects. While we certainly could develop the site plan that was originally proposed in the criteria plan, we've proposed a similar site plan that we believe addresses some comments or some challenges that were with the site. As Standen mentioned, the access from the alleyway, a tractor trailer probably would not be able to navigate that. So we've proposed it coming in off of 3rd and having its own sort of access there. Additionally, the driveway that is coming into the site, since Boynton Beach Boulevard is partially state road, we would need to pull that a little bit further away from the intersection in order to get proper clearances and so forth. It makes for a safer situation. But more importantly, since this is sort of a quasi-governmental building, it should address the corner from a standpoint of hierarchy. So pulling it toward the corner, we'd be able to create sort of this green plaza where we have opportunities for things like artwork, art in public places, more additional green space, some plaza area, and the additional ability to add additional plantings and so forth, which would lead towards satisfying a lot of the CRA requirements for the area. We believe this site plan, works better for it and would be much more developable. It has the ability to utilize the alleyway if we need to, but otherwise be completely separated from it.
One more minute.
Next slide is the community development and design items. We're very familiar with the CRA design items as far as environmentally friendly items. I'm a lead professional. We've done over 20 lead projects all the way up to platinum. So we're very familiar with environmental items, and we would certainly incorporate those into the project as we've done in other CRA projects in the city.
All right, thank you so much. We're gonna
Just the one last
You wanna-
thing,
you
it's
wanna
one more
close it
slide,
up?
but it's a couple words. In terms of the financing for the project, we proposed, I think, around 700,000 in equity investment, and then about $1.4 million from a line of credit. There's no third-party lender. There's no mortgage contingency here. All of the funds are available, which can typically drag things on and potentially even stop projects. So that's not an issue with our
All
proposal.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the next applicant, which is Maple Tree Investments LLC. If the representative would like to approach the podium, state your name for the record. And you'll be given the same duration of time, which is up to 15 minutes.
Okay, so my name is Todd Conley, and I'm the owner and the operator of Maple Tree Investments. If I could just get my slides, the first one.
All right, 1 second. We'll pause the time until it's ready.
No worries.
Is this it? Okay.
Okay. So, like I said, my name is Todd Conley. My little company is Maple Tree Investments. I'm from Greensburg, Kentucky. I have been in the construction business since 1994. I have been doing postal projects since 2017. I currently have 3 of those under my belt. Next slide, if you could. Here we go. A little bit about my bio. Born in Greensburg, Kentucky, very, very small town, the center of Kentucky. Went to Western Kentucky for college. Been learning construction trade while I was in college and in summers. Started a property development business early on in 2003. 2017 started Maple Tree Investments, which focuses on commercial buildings with an emphasis on USPS facilities. So a little bit about the USPS start. The first one I built was in my hometown of Greensburg, Kentucky. They came to Greensburg to build a new post office, very similar to what you all hear. And one thing led to the other, and I was able to get the project. We finished on time and with accuracy and transparency and really good networking, and that went really well. And from there on, we've done a couple more. Next slide, please. So that's the Greensburg post office right there. Most of these post offices they're pretty vanilla. There's not a whole lot of tricks or stumbles to them. That one's a 6,000 square foot facility. So I did the property acquisition, I did the design, I did the site development and the structure construction. Not me personally, but I oversaw all of that. So next. In 2020, we completed the second USPS facility. So this one included property acquisition. That was an old Chase Bank. And so this one was really interesting. This was 2 banks. This was 2 bank buildings in a lot that had one-way streets on all 3 sides and no access to the bottom part. So seems all pretty easy. But what a lot of people don't think about is how you drive and where the mail goes and where the snorkel boxes go and how the traffic patterns look and so forth. So this one was pretty challenging in that, like I say, you could only get in one way and out one way. You drive on the right side of the road, but you drop mail off on the left side of the road. And then to top it all off, there was a tunnel that ran under the property. So that one got really interesting. Next slide for me, please. This is Louisville, North Carolina, USPS facility. This one is another 6,000 square foot facility. This one was design, site development, structure, construction, 6,000 feet, just like Greensburg. This one's kind of interesting in that I had to find this property. It was not for sale at the time that we acquired it. So it took quite a bit of in-town networking. It took quite a bit of beating the bushes, if you will, to try to figure out an ideal spot for traffic flow. And USPS is really big on accessibility and convenience. And so this one was quite a chore. We did finally find the property that suited them and got this one built. Next slide, please. So we know all the answers to these questions right here. So it's a retail facility with approximately 3,490 net interior feet. 30-foot loading dock with a leveler, easy stuff, HVAC to code. They'll want 200 amps of electric. They'll want plumbing stubbed up. Water and gas needs to be metered on site. 22 parking spots, including ADA. So site and construction work just according to the USPS plans that they've given us. They when they get their mind set, they like to do things. So that's according to what we've been provided. So next slide. So it's going to be a pretty short presentation compared. I wish I'd have went first now. So my design team is Mr. Blanco. So Mr. Jose Blanco has been designing postal for about 20 years in this area. I reached out to him as soon as I got word of the project and asked him if he would help us finish it up if we were be fortunate enough to get it. And he said, absolutely, if you get this thing across the finish line, I will help you finish it. So he's the guy that drew the prints that the concepts that you're looking at now. He referred Mr. Chris Hauser for the construction part. So they're used to working together already. They have good relationships. They know where and when each other are going. When I come into a town that I'm obviously not from or have never been before, then the networking is the hard part, right? Because you don't really know who's worked together before or how the relationships are going to go and so forth and so on. So if you can get those referrals, if I can get those referrals, then that makes them easier for me. Like I say, Hauser Construction Group, he's local to the area. Mr. Blanco is local to the area. These folks have both worked together before. Okay, next. Print that everybody's got, the concept that everybody's got, shows the building orientation as Mr. Blanco has drawn it. And that has been obviously approved by Postal. That's kind of the idea that they're looking at. There may be some variations according to local stuff, but that's kind of what they're looking for. Backing a straight truck in there, probably won't have anything any bigger than a straight truck in a retail location because that's why they're doing the hubs now. So they're selling stamps and taking mail in these retails, and then they're doing bigger hubs that will have bigger trucks. So most of this it'll be local and it'll be walk-in and it'll be that kind of thing, but they won't be doing any sorting or any of that kind of business in these locations more than likely. So next. Okay, so my proposal. The land was appraised at 917,000. There wasn't, you could have went anywhere you wanted to go with how much the developer was going to give for it. Me not knowing the value of that land here, the only thing that I could really do was put the appraisal in there, 917,000. So that's where my proposal starts. So I've got $1,294,96 for the construction. We did 77,000 for the permits, and you guys have already seen and can read my numbers there on out. What I normally do, or what I have been doing, is we'll do debt service on the loan, which I would be borrowing the money. I'm not going to be able to stick 750 grand into the project. I'll be borrowing the money, except for the 20% that will be required. And then we put monthly maintenance on there. And there are different maintenance situations in different places. This one's going to have a little bit of mowing. There won't be any snow to push. There won't be any of that business. So the maintenance will be almost nothing. Now, they will require us to maintain what we build. So if we install the HVAC and it tears up, it'll be on us. But anything that they do, they will maintain it. So if they build it, they fix it. If I build it, I fix it. Pretty simple stuff. So not a ton of maintenance here. Next. Is that it? Good. So I was hoping there would be some questions, because I knew mine was going to be short.
We're going to move on to questions in a few moments, but I wanted to make sure that you finished completely.
Okay. So again, thank you for the opportunity to come down here. Pretty good place to be in the wintertime when you're from Kentucky, so it's not a hard trip to make and hang out. I'm happy to answer all of your questions about me, or at least as much of them as there are known currently about the project. Thanks again.
Thank you. So at this portion, we're going to move on to questions and comments from the board. And if a representative of each of the applicants could approach the podium, this way we'll address the questions one after the other. All right. Board Member Kelly, would you like to begin?
Can I be over here? Is that fine?
Absolutely. Just make sure the mic's on.
Chair, do we have a representative from the post office on?
Do we? Tim?
Vicky.
Yes,
Is Rick-
Richard Hancock is online.
Board Member Kelly, would you like to hear from Mr. Hancock?
Yes, I would like to hear from them as far as what their, what their feedback is on this.
I think that's a good idea. Mr. Hancock, if you are there, please unmute yourself.
Good evening, everyone. How are we tonight? I hope you're doing well. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm familiar with these proposals. I do have some comments and questions. From a postal perspective, we're looking at trying to make each proposal apples to apples, okay? And they're not currently. There are some questions that'll have to be drilled down on the price point specific to making the purchase price apples to apples on the proposal, because that's going to have a significant impact on the pass-throughs for the rest of the carry costs for the project. In addition, in terms of the cost of maintaining and handling a postal facility, Todd does have completed 3 of them. He's familiar with what we require for delivery, but also as far as maintenance and what the shell deliverable, as we call it, are. So that's something that we'd have to work a little bit more in detail with the first proposal. The concerns I have and our folks have is really A, the price point, apples to apples. B, where the devil is in the details of the carry costs, the pass-throughs, operating expenses. I admit that I hadn't noticed that there was the CAM, et cetera, on the first proposal. This is a standalone building, so there wouldn't be management costs of significance, or there wouldn't be common area maintenance. It's only one building, so we would have to see the budget of where that number came from and why, and compare that to Maple Hill's proposal to see where that is. And then in terms of the big issue with the Postal Service is we presented a plan. That was the plan that we have approved from our perspective. That includes what we call a box truck for retail only to use that alleyway. and back in that way. And that is our proposed plan. We never spoke of a tractor trailer. No one's ever asked us about that. We're not planning to use that. So the alleyway is kind of crucial to what we're proposing to use. And so we would like to see both proposals using that. And if we can't use the alleyway, then we need some reason why we can't. And then allow us to address that either through zoning or through the city or whatever else it is, because our architect has said it is viable. We've reached out to the CRA, they say it's viable. They've reached out to zoning, they say it's viable. So that is our preference, to keep the truck traffic separate and also to keep it coming off the alleyway versus that side street. So those are the bulk main issues. We'd have to drill down in terms of, picking one. I think it's a little early, but we're very, very happy to have two strong candidates. That's about it.
Thank you, Mr. Hancock. Board Member Cully, since you made this request, did you have any questions for the speaker?
I don't have any. I wanted to hear from him first because I assumed that he would have some questions or some input as far as the two proposals go. And I guess, and one of my conversations with Tim was, I know the rent proposals. My concern going into this was they were so different, and what the post and hearing and learning what the post office expected, because we're going through this process, and then we're going to select potentially we'll select someone, and then I don't want to get down the line and then have the post office go, well, it's not going to work. So I really wanted to hear from the post office as far as if these options are viable. I know that he just mentioned that they were good proposals and a good place to start, but I guess I'm just looking for a little bit more, kind of information from the post office as to whether or not these are, if they're viable, if they're workable, if the rent is comparable to what the post office is comfortable paying, is currently paying, and that sort of thing. That's kind of where I'm at, because at this point, for me to go down my list of questions without knowing whether or not the post office is really comfortable moving forward with either one of these, that's so, I don't know, Mr. Hancock, if you can.
Sure, I'll be glad to. Okay. The answer to your question is, yeah, we're interested in both proposals. Okay, but they're not equal. Okay, one has 120,000 for the land purchase, and then that costs it out over 10 years. The other one is full appraised value. That has to match. Okay, then we have to look at the pass-throughs, which is, as we said, the common area maintenance, the management fee. We don't pay management fees. So that'll be rolled into the rent, then that's part of the total cost, and then that's a comparison over. In addition to taxes, as a triple net, the Postal Service will reimburse taxes paid to the local community. So that's kind of a separate issue. If they do a tax abatement, that's fine. Okay, that would be a cost savings to the Postal Service, but as a triple net standard, that's something we normally just reimburse taxes, and that's one thing. So my point is, we would have to drill down, and both parties we'd have to match who's paying for what, where, when, and how a little bit more, and then we'd have to match the plans. So yeah, they're both viable, but those two things have to match.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hancock. We're going to continue on with the board. Let's move on now to Board Member Hay, if you had any questions or comments for either applicants or Mr. Hancock from USPS.
I hear Mr. Hancock's concern, and I share that. I like to have that drill down also to make sure that things are matching up. But I really have a concern about that alley. Mr. Hancock, did I hear you say that the post office has use for an 18-wheeler?
No, we will never use an 18-wheeler for a retail of this size. There will never be a tractor trailer going to this facility.
Okay, so that can be sort of taken off the table.
Correct.
Okay. But again, getting back to apples, compared to apples, there were a set of bullets that I had on when I talked to Tim, I hand wrote some notes on that, but could you pull that up? You know, the bullets that we were talking about, I want to go through those with each applicant and ask
Vicky?
them to respond. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Is this the spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Vicky, I think he's referring to the lease attachment, which outlines the comparison between the two proposals with the lease information as well as the requirements that they had. So within this comparison, you can see the comparison of the rent options that were provided by both proposers. You can also see that what the purchase price was from one to the other. And you can see what Mr. Hancock was referring to is they were looking for a tax abatement. I'm assuming from the CRA for the life of the lease.
Correct.
And they were also looking for a waiver of the impact fees as well as the utility connection fees.
Correct.
And I believe that was the total and ask, if I'm not mistaken, unless I'm missing something.
Nope, that sounds right. Yep.
Okay.
So could you?
Was that?
Yes. Well, that also, but there was another 3 or 4 bullets on the.
Talking about the evaluation
Yes.
criteria?
Yeah, the evaluation.
Okay. Vicky, if you go back
I would like to hear them respond to that though.
if you go back to the memo.
Yes, right here. Go up. Right.
There's 4 evaluation
Back down,
criteria.
Right here.
Right. Okay.
The
So,
evaluation criteria.
right. So the RFP, the way that it's written, there's 4 criteria that would be used to evaluate the successful candidate for or a proposal. And one would be the experience in completing comparable development projects within markets similar to the project areas as a proposing team. So have you demonstrated experience with similar projects? The second one is proposers' financial terms, purchase price, development, and operating performance. The next consideration would have been proposers' financial capacity to complete the proposed project. And the fourth is the proposed plan or program to engage local contractors, subcontractors, and laborers in the project, as well as apprenticeship programs.
I would like for each of you, if you could, just respond to those 4 evaluation criteria in best way that you can. Do you see them on the board there?
Sure. Yes, I do. Okay. So relative experience, I guess as I stated earlier in our presentation, we have a wide variety of experience in many different construction types, as well as down here locally. The project itself is something we've done significantly more than in terms of site work and building construction. So there really isn't anything there that is a challenge to us. We've got a local architect and a local attorney to help us work through all of these issues. In terms of the financial terms, the purchase price, and the development and operating pro forma, I think we did provide that information. I can run through it again, but it is right here on your sheet in terms of our land acquisition costs and our rent and our maintenance costs. As I stated earlier, these numbers can move. They just have to move in sync, so they make sense from a financial perspective. In terms of financial capacity, I stated earlier, we have a letter of credit, a $5 million letter of credit that's immediately available to us. We've got equity we're ready to invest as well. So financial capacity is not an issue at all for us. I mentioned our $200 million bonding capacity. We're a very strong, sound, financially stable company. Regarding proposed plan or program to engage local contractors, That's all that we would do. We've done work here. We're working here. We know local subcontractors. We're doing an outreach event for our Public Works project that's also in Palm Beach County. We're doing that early next year. So we're very familiar with those requirements and have no problems addressing them at all.
Maple Tree.
Yes, sir. So, thank you. So experience in completing comparable development projects with markets similar to the project area as the proposing team. So I do have three past postal developments. Two of the three in very similar communities as this one. Both of those three requiring pretty significant involvement with municipality, permitting, review, et cetera, just like I know all you guys are used to. So we have all of that. We also have the experience that's really just postal, which is a little bit different than doing a commercial project or doing another project that's not postal. There are some nuances that go with that we've had to learn the hard way, quite honestly. They get inspected after you're done, and all the boxes get checked and all those things. So we've been down that road multiple times. And the contacts as far as the design team and knowing what they expect and what postal expects, I'm very familiar with that. Proposer's financial terms, purchase price, development, and operating pro forma. So the elephant in the room is the purchase price, I guess.
Yes.
But without a whole lot of guidance on the front end of that. And so that's as broad as it is long, right? So you offer $100,000 for the property, and CRA doesn't get 800, but postal gets less rent. You offer 917, and CRA is happy, but postal pays more rent. So what side do you pick? I chose to pick the appraised price because that was a number that we knew. That was a number that was there. That was a number we knew. It's as good as it is bad. It could have went either way. Financial capacity to complete the project. Perfectly capable of having the financing to complete the project. I included a letter from my banker, who is the only one that I use. We've done 3 together now. They want to do more. We're excited to do that. As this will be owned by the developer, whoever that is, however that works. Bonding is obviously not an issue because you can't be bonded to yourself. So we won't need to go down that road. And we have all the other things in place to make sure that we make that work. Okay. Proposed plan or program, including monitoring mechanisms to engage local contractors, subcontractors, and laborers, as well as apprentice programs. So again, in my proposal, I've included Mr. Blanco, who is going to be the architect if I were fortunate enough to get it, and then Chris, who is a local contractor. Now, Chris will use subs in this area as well. That's what he does. He's an established person. Mr. Blanco is an established architect. He's been doing postal stuff for a very long time. There wouldn't be any reason for them to reach outside of their envelope just to do this project. So, and then I guess the monitoring mechanism, I'm not exactly sure where that road's going down, but what I tell you is I monitor my project. So when you call my office number, you don't get accounting, and you don't get a receptionist, and you don't get, you get me. So there's one guy to talk to about the project, and that's me. And honestly, it's once it gets going, and ladies and gentlemen are exactly right. Once you get it past the permitting piece, it's not a complicated project. It'll move right along unless you find something on the dirt that you're not expecting. But we've already got phase ones, and we've already got the phase ones, so we shouldn't find anything according to those phase ones. Apprenticeship programs. No, unless Chris has something like that, I'm just not aware of it. And there was a little bit, if this evaluation criteria that you guys produced, I saw that I was kind of dinged a little bit on resumes for all of the folks involved, and these folks put together an excellent package. It was huge. I didn't include it. I didn't include resumes for Chris or Jose because it's all me. So my resume is included. Those people are accountable to me. I'm accountable to you guys and Postal. So my resume is there, and it's me, if that makes any sense. So when you call or you need accountability, then you only get to talk to me, for good, bad, or indifferent.
All right, thank you. Board member, did you have your questions answered?
Yes.
All right, thank you. We're going to turn now to board vice chair.
Thank you, Chair. Okay. For DMR, when I look at the price per square foot, and then I look at the additional CAM management insurance per square foot, that 8092, does that include those expenses? Or is it that 8092 plus the additional 23 per square foot?
The 8092 includes the expenses.
That's including the, okay.
Correct.
Okay, and then we've already heard about the 18-wheeler. This is going to be a retail model, so that's irrelevant at this point, from what I'm understanding. For Maple Tree, you mentioned that you've done 3 of these deals before. You have that relative experience. And have you always pursued the same financing for this? I know you said you use the same bank.
I do.
You've always done it.
Yes, as of right now.
Okay.
I have one gentleman that I went to high school with that is my banker. He's the vice president of First and Farmers National Bank, which is in your packet. And we work together very well. The rates are always competitive. Financing's not an issue. Not many banks turn down a lease from the Postal Service.
Right. We're in different economic times, so I got to ask.
Absolutely. No, I'm glad for you too. 100%.
Don't think the post office is going anywhere.
If they do, we have other problems.
That's right. And so you talked about, supervision of the project. You recommended a contractor from your architect that you've worked with in your past.
No, sir. I've not worked with Chris, but the architect has. Yes, sir.
The architect you have worked with in your past, and this architect is recommending Chris, who is the GC.
That's how the referral came about. Yes, sir.
And so you're telling me that Chris will make it a point to look at local subcontractors within the city of Boynton.
He is in the area. Yes, sir. Absolutely. No reason for him to go outside that envelope. That would just cause cost.
Yep. And you're not looking for the tax abatement. You're not looking for a reduction of fees, impact fees.
So again, it's as broad as it is long. I guess you don't really save anybody any money. And at the end of the day, you would cost city money because all taxes are going to be passed through. So I'd have to think that one through, but I don't know that anybody would benefit from that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so, looking at this, I'll just go ahead and make my position known. I think looking at these 2 proposals, hearing from the post office, looking at the relevant, experience from the past, for me, I think Maple Tree is the obvious option. I don't think what's presented could be the end all be all. And I think that if the applicant is willing and if we move forward and we have consensus, I think maybe negotiating that purchase price to then assist the post office with the price per square foot. And then also, at the end of the day, we're looking out for the city and the CRA's best interest. That's what we're elected to do. And so, this piece of land for $917,000 compared to $120,000, I think there's wiggle room there to try to drop the cost of the post office if that's something that you're willing to do. I'm going to steer on the side of caution and experience. I'm looking at both of these. For me, my position is with MTI. So I don't have any more questions at this time. I went pretty thorough with Tim in our agenda review, and yeah, I'll reserve my comments for what my colleagues think.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair. We're going to turn now to Board Member Cruz. Questions and comments for either applicants?
I think all of my questions have been answered since I went last. So, yeah. I do appreciate you bringing in a full purchase price. As you mentioned, there's an argument of, do we receive the highest price, or do we try to give the post office a better price for rent per month? I kind of wanted to hear from the post office to see, what is your expectation? And again, it depends on the market and all, but I mean, what can the post office afford to pay per square foot? Because what are they paying right now? Is it 25?
Well, what we're paying right now doesn't impact the new construction retail. And the existing building will be demolished for redevelopment and a significant price point. In terms of what we're looking for, obviously the Postal Service pass through on whatever the purchase price of the land is significant to our overall project cost. Okay. So the less the land purchase is, by far the better it is for the Postal Service, especially when that cost is carried over 10 years. So, the full asking price would not be our goal at all. And then secondarily, in terms of the pass-throughs themselves, modified gross versus triple net, we would significantly push back on DMR's expenses, and we would look at that and say, all right, if the insurance is going to be sidelined out and not as modified gross, but yet it's included in Maple Tree, and then we'd need to make that apples to apples. And like I said, in terms of CAM, there is no common area maintenance. It's a standalone building. So if you have an OpEx charge, a management charge, that would have to be considered, within the modified gross and roll that in. So the price per square foot has to match, and the price for the purchase has to match in order for the Postal Service to say that's fair and reasonable. Okay, so we know what the land cost is, what the development cost is, both for the site and for the building, and the rate of return on investment. Then we would also take that and we would contract a third-party appraiser to look at similar like item developments in the general area, and we would use that to prove that this is fair and reasonable to our headquarters finance group, and that's how we would do it.
All right, thank you. And then the next question is, for this type of lease situation where it's USPS, it would be USPS who pays the property taxes, right?
Yes, correct. It's a pass-through or a reimbursable. So the developer, the landowner would pay the taxes. There's a tax writer. Once the taxes are paid and documented, then the Postal Service would reimburse those taxes. But the landowner is responsible for the taxes.
All right, that's fine. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Cruz. Now, I do want to summarize everyone's position, and if you feel that my summary is incorrect, please let me know. Perhaps you've had a change of heart given all of the discussion thus far. Board Member Kelly and Board Member Hay, it was unclear to me which position you were taking, except to say that there was concerns about the comparison. It was not apples to apples, as Mr. Hancock has said, and it was a bit ambiguous to determine certain aspects of their proposals without things being apples to apples, using the phrase that was said. Did you have a change in position? Did you have additional comments or any corrections? Board Member Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. I do have one question for DMR. The post office was very clear in their design desires and what they want. And so I guess my question to you is, I know you had that design, you went with an alternative design based on what you thought would work better. What's your position as far as following what the USPS desires versus what you think would fit?
In the end, we have to make it work for the USPS for the deal to work. If they want to use that alleyway for trucking access, we'll figure it out. We'll have to work with the CRA to review that alley and what's going on there right now to make sure it does work. There's some utility poles in the way. I think the neighbor is actually on that property now. So we've been at the site, we've looked at it. Through the course of putting together our response, it sounded like there was some thought about shifting the building position closer to the corner. That seemed to work with a relocated loading dock. That seemed to get rid of that alleyway issue. That's why we proposed it. It was an option. We were just looking for some solutions for any potential issues. We're not against using the alleyway. It's going to have to be a conversation about how to make that work.
Okay. And then, Tim, do we know, you may not know off the top of your head, but as far as waivers of impact fees, I mean, what are we talking about figure-wise that the city would be agreeing to waive to?
You're
mean,
absolutely
that's-
right. I don't have an idea
Yeah.
of what that would be.
We have a lot of different impact fees, so the CRA is not empowered to waive impact fees or fees on
Right.
behalf of the city. So there could be a reimbursement scenario or something of that nature, but the CRA doesn't have the ability to waive those on behalf of the city. Okay, thank you. And then I guess just one more question. I know this is to DMR. You know, the post office has made their position very clear as far as CAM and those sort of fees. What can you just touch very quickly on what you expected or anticipated those fees would cover so
Yep.
that we can, and
Yeah, we did speak to some local maintenance company that do retail maintenance. I think it's almost neither here nor there. In the end, it's going to be what the post office actually requires. So we're just doing our due diligence. We went out and spoke with companies that do similar type work, and we got some quotes. Those costs are something that would be passed through on the actual cost basis. So if we would agree on what's required, and those maintenance costs would be whatever they are. If they're typically having very low maintenance costs, that's what we would end up with here. So that was just based on quotes that we had gotten from local maintenance companies.
Board Member Kelly, did you have any strong feelings in either direction, or perhaps not to take one this evening?
I am not being pulled in either direction, and the reason why is, you know, I favor Maple Tree in that they have the history and the background with the post office, and I think that's very important. But my concern is the local, you know, having a local established you know, business that has worked in our area, that knows, and I know that there's contractors and there's architects, and so I'm kind of in a quandary right now as far as where my exact position would be, but I do think that it's important that I feel like the USPS would be maybe better suited with Maple Tree just because of the experience that they already have. So if I had to lean a certain way, I mean, I think that I'm in a position to make a decision tonight. I don't think that I'm wanting to scratch it or postpone, but that's kind of where I'm kind of I'm still
Okay.
pondering. So
All right, so,
thank you.
well, we need to decide whether or not to make a decision this evening, but I've now heard Vice Chair leaning towards a Maple Tree. I'm now hearing that you are indeed leaning towards Maple Tree. Board Member Hay, was there any changes to your position? Did you have any follow-up questions? My understanding is your position is you need more information.
Yes, if I had to make a choice tonight, it would be Maple Tree. Based on, I believe that Chris can handle some of the concern of working with locals. But I do have some concerns, but I think in the long run, I think Maple Tree would be the better choice.
All right. Well, thank you. There, now I've heard a majority. What I'd like to do now is hear from the public because we are making a decision this evening, and it is clear to me now what that direction is. Gentlemen, if you could take your seats, let me just open the floor for public comments before we make any final vote. If you would like to speak specifically on this item, now would be the time to approach the podium. All right, seeing no one approaching the podium to speak on this item, Ms. Kurthman, is there anybody with their digital hands raised?
No hands are raised at this time.
And with that, public comments on this item is now closed. So I turn now back to my colleagues. Given that we have heard the majority, the motion before us would be to authorize CRA staff and legal counsel to begin negotiations with Maple Tree Investments, LLC.
So move.
Respectfully, Board Chair, if I may add, for procedural reasons, if you may waive any inconsistencies or irregularities with the submittal as part of that motion.
Could you elaborate on that?
Sure. So it was mentioned this evening that there, and looking at this sheet, that there were each of the applicants contained minor deficiencies in their application. For example, Maple Tree mentioned that there were resumes that were perhaps missing. So to the extent that, and I believe that Acting Director Tim may have some more information on that, but to the extent there are any inconsistencies in the submittal, we would just want to waive them at this point so that it's clear that you are making this decision with that information.
So the motion would be what I've stated, waiving any inconsistencies before us.
That's correct. And if Mr. Tack would like to just make clear whether there are any specific ones that we should be aware of.
All right. Just to review it, out of an abundance of caution, there were some evaluation criteria, basically so that the submittals would be sufficient. As mentioned before, as a part of the required elements of the proposals, both applicants were to provide a brief profile for each member of the development team, other than the proposing developer, as well as resumes of the key personnel who would be assigned to the project, which has already been addressed.
Which has been addressed. So you are making this decision having heard that information. If you so choose, you may waive that criteria as part of your selection of the proposer.
Also, as another criteria was to provide a description of how the proposer will make attempts to utilize local qualified contractors and subcontractors and laborers to the proposed project, as well as pre-apprenticeship or apprenticeship training. Documentation of the effort will be required as a part of the project monitoring. That has also been addressed. Another requirement is provide proof of financial capability to complete the proposed project. Financial capability would be demonstrated by submitting a current financial statement of the proposing entity or underlying entity if proposing entity was recently created, which includes a balance sheet, a 3-year statement of past income, and a projected 1-year income statement for the current fiscal year for the proposer. That was provided by DMR, but not MTI. So if there's inconsistency with that, that would have to, and you enter negotiations with MTI, you would have to waive that as a part of the required element.
Can we do a contingency? Can we enter in with contingency? Yeah, we can. Okay. I'd be okay with that.
And that would clarify if you did want to enter negotiation with MTI, those would be the inconsistencies that were not addressed as part of the proposal at time of submission.
All right, thank you, both of you. The floor is open for a motion, folks.
So move.
Council, sufficient clarity?
Sure, if you'd like for me to clarify, Board Member Turkin, I'm happy to over here. Okay. So the motion is to waive any inconsistencies or irregularities with the submittal, select MTI moving forward as the successful proposer, and direct staff and legal to enter into negotiations consistent with the RFP.
And contingent upon providing, I guess, all of those or the financial Financial, the big one for me.
If that is what you wish.
So I'm gonna say with the financial, I think that's the bread and the butter. So yeah, I'll make that motion.
That I was second.
All right, we have a motion from Vice Chair Turkin and a second from Board Member Hay. We've already heard from the
Right.
applicants and the public. There is further discussion. Go ahead, Board Member Cruz.
I wanted to ask a question. When we talked earlier about the purchase price and negotiating that, would it be fair to allow both parties to provide an update? For example, for MTR and the other party to provide an update to provide everything like the resumes, the purchase price, the proof of financing and that sort of thing, and bring it back to the board to see that that is the case. And then if we still want to move forward with the one that we're talking about right now, then we could. It's up to the board, but I'm just thinking that we're going into negotiations, but we have two proposals, but we're only giving an opportunity potentially. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud of the possibilities. I don't know.
I don't fully understand what you're saying.
So as we're going into negotiations with one of the proposers, which, you know, both parties submitted the RFP, and then one of the parties did not submit, for example, financing or the resumes of all the people involved, would we like to see, like maybe look into who those people are, because maybe we don't really know who they are, to see if they would be the right fit. It's possible that they are, but I'm not really sure.
So just to make sure I understand what you're saying, you're just saying that if we are going to enter into negotiations with them, you want all that missing information to be brought forward.
I think that the motion probably included that, if I'm not mistaken. But what I was saying is to give the opportunity for both proposers to bring up their best and final type of offer to the board. But again, it's up to the board's discretion with the financing, with the purchase price offer, and with the information of the resumes of everybody, just so that they could be on equal playing fields per se.
So I feel like we're beyond that point.
Yes.
If the majority is already selecting one of the two, I'm not sure what the point would be for the other party to bring it forward. But Vice Chair, you had your hand up. So if you...
Mayor, I think you took the words right out of my mouth. No, listen, I have nothing to add to what you just said. We're there.
Okay. All right. Was there anything else? We have a motion before us and a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion passes unanimously. Congratulations to Maple Tree Investments LLC. All right. And thank you to all the applicants who submitted and are present today. We're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is 13B. 13B is discussion and consideration of extension of lease with the USPS at 217 North Seacrest Boulevard. I'm going to turn to Mr. Tack. I feel like this is a cleanup or housekeeping issue. I'll leave it to you, Mr. Tack, to expound.
Well, the United States Postal Service is currently located at 217 North Seacrest Boulevard, which is a property that the CRA owns. They are looking to continue to operate out of that facility and have asked for an extension, a lease extension to January 31st, 2025, because it is set to expire in January of 24. The USPS submitted that request, and due to the condition of the building and the costs associated with the ongoing maintenance, the CRA board may elect, if you choose, as a standard practice, a typical annual commercial rent increase of 3 to 5%. So that's for your consideration. The current rent is $180,125 annually. And as you can see within the memo, if you decide with any type of increase, or at least 3, 4, or 5, it's up there and you can see what that is. So it's up for it's up for you to extend that lease with possibly a rent increase as well.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Tack. Just for clarification, the intent of the rent increase, I assume, is for maintenance costs?
Typically, and it's considered standard practice with every annual rent increase.
All right. So this is a 1-year extension, and the second part of this is whether or not a rent increase, and if yes, which percent?
Yes.
Okay, Board Member Cruz, let's begin with you and we'll go in reverse order.
Hey, for Tim, question. We recently purchased a new air conditioning unit, right? That cost about what, $35,000?
It was $21,000 actually.
21,000.
Yeah, we've actually spent, since we've owned the property, Teresa was nice enough to grab some numbers for me real quick before the meeting. We've expended close to $60,000 this year.
Yeah.
$60,000.
And maintenance of the
Meaning
building.
at least 1/3 of that being a new air conditioning, which we don't anticipate having to do. I mean, that's a major expense. We've also had some studies done as far as the structural integrity, how the electrical is doing and how the mechanical's holding up and what type of maintenance we're looking at. And we don't anticipate some of that disappearing, but yeah, 60,000 so far.
So with that being said, just because we are absorbing a huge cost because it is in kind of a rundown older building, and we're definitely, maintaining our lease, and hopefully trying to get a new building for the USPS, I would definitely be in favor of an increase. I mean, at minimum 3%, but even if we did a 5%, it still would not cover the entire $60,000 that we've spent. However, that's fine. I would be in favor of really any increase. I want to hear what the rest of the board has to say, but I would be in favor of an increase for sure, not keeping it as it is, and potentially a 5% just to try to get as much as we can back, even though it won't be enough, and there could be more reoccurring costs in the future, right? Potentially.
It's hard to predict with
Yeah.
the building of that age, and the ongoing maintenance is very difficult to determine. Certainly, this is something that you can elect to do. It's not a necessary. It's just something that you guys can decide on.
Yep. Right. That's where I
Thank
stand.
you. Vice Chair, your thoughts?
I agree with Board Member Cruz. For me, at least 5%. I think,
Right.
5% open to more, but I agree.
Got it. All right. Thank you, Board Member Hay.
Interesting. I agree also with the 5%.
All right. Thank you. Board Member Kelly.
I could go along with that. I was kind of leaning more towards 3% just because we've had kind of the bigger bulk of the expenses this last year. Tim, I guess my question is, you talked about there being a kind of a study or a survey with regard to potential future repairs or I guess a study to make sure that the building was sound and the electricity. Was there anything that came out of that we need to be concerned with in the next year?
I don't have everything available for you as far as costs that would be associated with that type of study, but that's something we're definitely looking into. And we will continue to look into as we are, the landlord essentially.
Right. I mean, okay. So we don't know we're not anticipating anything big, but
It's
we
really
don't
hard
know.
to say because
I
we
know.
wouldn't have anticipated replacing a major air conditioning unit and then it stopped working. So certainly keep in mind that we are getting $180,000 in rent. So take that into consideration with your calculus. And 60,000 may be high. We don't know because this is really just our first year at it. So.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of leaning towards the 3% just because it is the post office. But I could support another number. I think that, as long as the post office is comfortable and willing to pay it, then I can get behind that.
Thank you, Board Member Kelly. If it makes anybody feel any better, the difference between 3% and 5% are a couple $100. There's no significant difference, just FYI. Let's turn now to the public. If anybody would like to speak on this item, now would be the time to come and approach the podium. Seeing no one approaching the podium, Ms. Kerfman, is there anyone with their digital hands raised to speak specifically on this item?
No hands are raised at this time.
Thank you. With that, public comments on this item is now closed. I'll entertain a motion. The motion would be, I believe it's on the screen. If we could scroll down a little bit. It is to approve the 1-year extension and then of course state which percent increase.
Excuse me, Board.
Yes.
Is Mr. Hancock still online? Would you like to ask him anything prior to making a decision, or at least, I just want to make sure that he's available if you guys have any.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I have no questions at this point. Does anybody have any questions? All right, so the floor is on the table. The floor is open for the motion.
Motion to approve a 1-year extension under the current terms and conditions with a 5% increase to the rent.
Second.
I don't know who was first. Motion made by Board Member Kelly, the second made by Board Member Cruz. All right, we've already heard from the public. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those who oppose say no. The ayes have it. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We're now moving on to item 13C, discussion and consideration of the First Amendment to the interlocal agreement between the city and the CRA for the Historic Women's Club of Boynton Beach, located at 1010 South Federal Highway. Mr. Tack.
All right. In February of 2021, the city and the CRA entered into an interlocal agreement for the transfer of ownership and funding of certain improvements, operations, and maintenance of the Historic Women's Club of Boynton Beach, located at 1010 South Federal Highway. The ILA allows the city to request reimbursement for eligible costs for physical maintenance and renovations in an amount not to exceed $250,000 annually for 3 years. We are currently in the 3rd year. The termination date of the agreement is February 11th, 2024. And what we're asking is for an extension of this agreement via amendment to the end of the fiscal year of September 30th, 2024, to allow the city to make those improvements and submit reimbursements for those eligible items.
And thank you, Mr. Tack. So to say it simply, we need to give the city more time, hence the extension.
Yes.
Okay, questions. Let's begin with Board Member Kelly. If you have any questions, comments.
I do not have any questions.
Thank you, Board Member. Yep.
Well, I guess, Tim, I know we talked about how the city hasn't submitted for certain.
We have an understanding that there are certain things that were paid for that have not been reimbursed, and we may have to be coming back to the board to see how you would like to address those items, as well as we're continuing to work with city staff and seeing how those payments were made or those expenses were paid in prior to, because there are certain deadlines within the agreement that they are supposed to be seeking reimbursement after that purchase is made. And the first 2 years of this have gone by. So we're going to work with city staff to see what expenses could have been reimbursed, eligible, and come back to the CRA board potentially to see how an amendment would be done. Also, there was a request for $250,000 that we approved as part of our budget, which may come back as an amendment as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Hay.
No, I'm good with this extent.
All right, Board Member
No
Cruz.
questions for me.
All right, with that, let's go to public comment. If you would like to speak specifically on this item, now is the time to approach the podium. Seeing no one approaching the podium, is there anybody with their digital hands raised?
No hands are raised.
With
Thank
that,
you.
public comment on this item is now closed. I'm going to turn back to my colleagues. We'll now entertain a
Motion to approve the amendment to extend the termination date of the interlocal agreement between the city and the CRA for the funding of certain improvements, operations, and maintenance of the Historical Women's Club of Boynton Beach.
Second.
All right, thank you. A motion made by Board Member Cruz, second by Board Member Hay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We're now moving on to item 13D. This is the discussion and consideration of the First Amendment to the interlocal agreement between the city and the CRA for the CRA district streetscape/lighting improvements.
Okay. Back in June of 2021, the board approved the interlocal agreement to fund CRA streetscape lighting improvements in the amount not to exceed $445,561 and established a termination date of January 31st, 2024. The interlocal agreement details the responsibilities of the city and the CRA, the procedures to fund reimbursement to the city, and the reporting requirements by the city to ensure compliance with the plan and Florida statutes. To date, we have a couple of projects that have been completed, and there's a couple of projects that are ongoing, as well as some projects that haven't started. And we're looking just to extend this agreement with the city to the end of the fiscal year, again, September 30th, 2024.
All right, so similar to the previous item, we're going to give the city more time.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Board Member Cruz, anything?
No questions for me.
Vice Chair? Board Member Hay?
Good.
Board Member Kelly?
No questions.
All right, let's go to public comment. If you would like to speak specifically on item 13D, now is the time to approach the podium. Seeing no one approaching the podium, anybody with the digital hands raised?
No hands are raised at this time.
Public comments on this item is now closed. The floor is open for a
Motion
motion.
to approve the First Amendment to the interlocal agreement to extend the termination date of the CRA streetscape lighting improvements and authorize the board chair to execute subject to final legal review.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion made by Board Member Cruz, second by Board Member Kelly. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The motion passes unanimously. We're now moving on to item 13E, update on recruitment of new executive director. And this is just the update. Thank you, Mr. Tack.
On November 13th, 2023, the CRA board directed staff to advertise the executive director position. The position was advertised on LinkedIn, FRA, IEDC, and Indeed. We have currently received 27 resumes as of December 5th, 2023. In accordance with the last board meeting, you were looking at advertising for 30 days with the potential of extending that to 60 days. Based upon what we have received, staff is looking for direction to close the application deadline as of Friday, December 15th, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Tack. I remember this conversation from our previous meeting. The board was split about 30 and 60 days. I remember Board Member Hay, I know you were leaning towards 60, and then I said, let's get an update at the 30-day point, and if the board would like more applicants, we can always do another 30. So this is where we are. We're getting the update, and the question is, are we done taking applications, or would you like to extend for another 30 days or even some other period of time? All right. So with that, let's begin with who was I with last? Was I Board Member Kelly? Did you have any questions, or were you comfortable with another 30 days? Did you want to close it out? And by the way, one more thing, Tim, do inform the board. We may have had that many applicants, but how many actually met the minimum qualifications? Because that's the real number that we need to think about.
As of today, we have 12 that meet the minimum qualifications. 12.
I mean, I think that we could proceed. I mean, I would be open to potentially keeping it open, but starting the process to see. We haven't even looked. I mean, I know staff has looked at them and they meet the minimum requirements, but we haven't looked at one of them. So we don't really know what we're looking at until we see a packet. So I kind of would like to start maybe that process, but I'm open to keeping it open as well, at the same time, kind of like we did for
Right.
city attorney.
Yeah. So my thought on that is, and although that's something we could do, I would prefer that no one group gets a head start over the others. I know we did that before, but it was a little clunky. Meaning, if we're going to begin the process, let's just begin the process when everybody's in simultaneously. So that's just my initial thought on that. Anything else, board member?
No.
All right, let's go to board member Hay. Your thoughts?
Well, I was trying to toss up the idea, excuse me. I think 12 is probably a good number to go with to start the process. I don't think we need to wait another 30 days. Just go with the 27 was a good start with applicants, and then you narrow that down to 12 that meet the requirements. So we have 12 to meet the requirements. I feel comfortable with moving ahead with the process.
Just to clarify, 12 meet the minimum qualifications. They may not fully have everything that you may be looking for. It's just the minimum qualifications in accordance with the advertisement for the position. Just as a point of clarification.
We appreciate the clarification. Board Member Hay, I could also propose a compromise, something in the middle. But I'll wait for you.
Um, The last time we had this discussion, I really did feel strongly on the 60 days. And as I look at this, and having gone through this process myself in another venture, they could really start thinning out very quickly. Okay, so I'm going to stick with my original thought and extend because of that. My initial thinking when you mentioned the 12 was that they all met all of the requirements, and that's not necessarily true because you could go back and say, okay, they don't meet this, that, and the other, and we could end up with
Less than. Yeah.
12. So my position, Chair, is to remain with the extension.
Of another 30 days or something
30.
in between?
Another 30.
Okay, all right. All right, let's go to Vice Chair, your thoughts?
I'm indifferent. I could extend or I can move forward
Okay.
with what we have now. I'm indifferent.
All right, and Board Member Cruz?
I think it would be good to start looking at the applicants and, moving on with the process. And then if we don't find the right applicant, we can open it up again. But I think that if we wait longer, we might not be able to look at the resumes is that how it is? If we start the process now, we would be able to look at the resumes.
Well, on a practical matter, Board Member, this is our meeting for December. We won't meet again until January. So if we began now really means January, which is another 30 days.
Gotcha.
So that's just because we only have one meeting a month, right? So that's the situation.
I'm fine with getting started with the process.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I saw, was that a hand up, Board Member Kelly?
Yes. Can we, and maybe just instead of just a flat 30 days, I would like to maybe at the next meeting, then the posting is closed and then we're getting our packet of resumes so that we're not, because now we're here at this meeting and if we stopped now, the 30 days doesn't end till the end of this week. So I'm just wondering if we can, as opposed to doing 30 days, if we can
Something in the middle.
cut it before the next meeting so that by the next meeting, we've gotten a packet and we're making a kind of a forward progress. But that's just my thought, just as opposed to a straight 30 days.
Let me piggyback on that idea. What if we just close it by the end of the year? Is that something that staff, what are your thoughts on that, staff? If we just made it a clean cut by the end of the year, would that be something you could get the applicants, put them into binders, compile it, and bring it to us by the next meeting?
I think we could absolutely do that. Vicky?
Because in this way, there's a compromise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that's one idea on the table.
I could support that.
You could support that?
Because I believe our next meeting is January 18th, which is a little bit further out than we would
Yeah,
normally have.
that should
So that
be
would give
a
staff a
huge
little
gap.
additional time to put it together.
Okay. Is that good with everybody?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Public comments, council, do we need public comments? This seems a bit administrative. It's not really final.
I think you can do this by decision. There's no, the next agenda item, although it's more administrative, will require a motion, but I believe this was given by consensus last time, so.
Okay, sounds good. Consensus is clear. Thank you, everybody. We're going to move on to the next item, 13F, discussion and consideration of process for selection of new executive director. So we've already determined that we're going to close that by the end of the year, and then by next meeting, we'll have all the binders and information.
So just to talk about the process is what this is, we're looking for. So once the advertisement is closed, which you proposed the end of December, correct?
Yeah.
That's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
Staff will, again, review the resumes. We will compile a binder for each one of you, in which will contain a minimum qualification form in front of each one of the respondents' resumes. At the next scheduled meeting, January 18th, the CRA board will collectively select which candidates are to be interviewed, and staff will schedule interviews with each board member separately. After the interviews, the CRA board will discuss the candidates at a special or regular CRA board meeting and select the successful candidate, if any. If a successful candidate is chosen, the board may direct staff to enter into contract negotiations with the successful candidate. This is a process that was shared from the city to acquire an employee, and this is what staff is suggesting, but certainly the board could suggest anything else that you would like to see as a part of this process.
All right. I want to go in order. Board Member Cruz, and then we'll go around. Did you have any questions for Tim?
Yeah, the question would be, do we have to interview the candidates before the 18th? Or when would we?
Well, you would actually be telling me on the January 18th which candidates,
You want to interview?
if any candidates, you would like to interview.
Oh, okay. Okay. Because I was
And
thinking
then
of Palm Beach County
based upon-
days and like not a lot of time to maybe have interviews with a ton of people before
Makes
the
sense.
18th. Okay.
And then based upon your review, you may select 3, 4, 5, whatever you decide candidates to set up interviews with.
Okay.
And then staff would individually set up those meetings with you all to interview the candidates.
No further questions for me.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
The only thing for me, and I just want to get y'all's opinion on this, the CRA department, everyone who works in the CRA is almost here, right? And it's a tight knit, it's a family culture, it seems like. And so for me, I know we are the ones that are making this decision with that candidate. If it's okay with y'all, for me, I would like the candidates that I pick to, I guess, maybe do a shadow, maybe get to know the team. And for me, I would go back to that team and get the feedback because they're going to be working with this individual. And so I think it's important that there's some cohesiveness and the ability to get along within such a small department. And I talked to Tim about this, in my agenda review, and if that's something that you guys would be up for, whether that be across the board or, allow me to do, if that's even something staff would be up for. I just think that's important. Hiring is you look at what's on paper, but I think because it's a small department, you need to know that this individual can lead and can fit in with the team.
So, Vice Chair, I think that's actually a relatively good idea. And I forget which process we did it in for which position, but one of the ways that can be accomplished is by having like a mixer. And so whether the candidates come in and they meet the people here, I just want to confer with council that there's nothing prohibitive about that.
No, I mean, at what I believe you're describing, and we would, require it to be noticed as a sunshine meeting, because of course you would be there meeting candidates potentially and discussing that, their hiring would come before you. So we'd have to go through those formalities. Maybe we can flesh out that idea a little further. But if you'd like to include in the process a component of interaction with staff prior to a decision is made, that can be worked in a generic sense, and the details of which can be worked out later.
Okay.
So it looks like I didn't quite answer your question.
No. You did. I'm just thinking ahead and trying to imagine. And I'm also wondering, I really thought we had done that before, but I could be mistaken. I thought we had some sort of candidate type of get together.
You may have it. Again, I'm not familiar with what you did at the city, so I apologize. But certainly, I mean, you could have a workshop or a charrette style meeting, something of that form, and that's fine. Again, we would just need to do the sunshine notice requirements because you all would be there, and I don't think that you would be speaking to each other about it. We would take appropriate measures, et cetera, but we would want to treat that as an ordinary public meeting.
Could we, so Catherine, you said, what the exact words you used, but, mingling with staff, part of the interview process, could we just incorporate that with each interview? So if I'm going to interview a candidate and I come to the CRA and I'm interviewing, then maybe 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes before or afterwards, they can get to know staff, and know that department.
There's certainly no legal prohibition against
Okay.
doing that. And I would also just add that, each of your individual interviews will be yours to conduct in the manner that you see fit, so long as it is a legal mechanism. So to the extent you require whatever resources you feel you need to appropriately assess any candidate, anything that your staff can make legally available to you, I'm certain that they will, including their presence.
Okay.
All right, let's hear from our colleagues, what their thoughts are on that. Board Member Kelly? Oh, did you have your hand up, Board Member Hay?
Yeah, I'll speak on it.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. So, anybody can go.
Well, you were going in order. That's what I'm.
You're going in order.
Yeah.
I could go along with what's been stated, because it is a small knit family, CRA staff. But I really don't see it making any difference. Because if this staff, if this board, if this CRA board decides for whatever reason they don't like that individual, and the staff loves that individual, we vote to cast them out with no reason. So I have a problem with coming back now and talking about staff having all this weight or whatever you want to call it, because it's not real. Can I go along with it? Yes, I go along with it because I think you need to try and mend, or you need to try to be a family and work together and have that team that you all want. But I just don't have any confidence in that process because of what has been done in the past. And it still bothers me. I don't like it. I don't like what was done. And there's nothing to hinder that from happening again. So I just want to get it out there. I like the interaction of staff with the new executive director, but I don't think it holds water. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Hay. Board Member Kelly?
Thank you, Chair. I am comfortable with staff recommendations proceeding forward, and I think we'll each conduct our interviews however we choose to do that. So, thank you.
To be clear, you said you're comfortable with the mixer type
recommended.
event.
If that's what everyone decides to do, but to me, I don't know that you're going to really get good feedback, or are we going to get I'm comfortable with staff recommendations, and I feel like if we want to meet them with staff, then that's up to us individually.
Understood. Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, I agree. I think creating a mixer with everyone together kind of just makes everything complicated. I think that as the attorney stated, we can each do our interview as we see fit. And generally speaking, everyone will put their best foot forward during the interview process. We'll just really have to find out once the candidate is hired, if our staff will be protected. And I think that's something that's really important to make sure that, our current staff feel comfortable with, keeping their jobs once we have new leadership. I think that's one of the most important things that, we can look into as in regard to criteria. However, there's really no guarantee until we cross the bridge and figure it out. But I'm in favor of everyone kind of doing their interview as they see fit.
All right, thank you. I don't see this as final action. So, right, we're going to proceed without public comment on this item unless you feel differently, Council.
Board Chair, as you are selecting the process, I would prefer that you have public comment and a motion.
Okay, that's fine with me. Let's proceed with public comment. If you'd like to speak specifically on this item, now's the time to approach the podium. All right, I see one person approaching. Let's switch the timer. All right, state your name for the record. Begin when you're ready.
Mark Kara, George. I appreciate Commissioner Hayes' comments. This is a position that is critical to the success of this agency. And I think that when you get down to, say, 2 or 3 candidates, that you have those 3 meet with staff, not all 12, okay? Because, and then get their input. Because they're going to be dealing with this person on a day-to-day basis, chain of command, that type of thing. And one of the things that when Tim talked about, they meet the minimum, and not everybody meeting all of the criteria. Well, I can tell you point blank that we've had executive directors that did not meet all the criteria, and they've worked out pretty good. It's going to be tough to find somebody that's going to meet everything. And Tim, I know you know that, okay? But you want the best qualified person. And there's been decisions that boards have made, and not this, well, yes, this board, but other boards have made that were actions that should not have been made. Just put it that bluntly. You want, keep in mind, the goal is to have the most qualified professional in the position. Someone that can lead, represent this agency, both statewide, nationally, and internationally. Because we're not done. There's still a lot to be done in this CRA, a tremendous amount still to be done. And be thorough, vet the people, vet them, vet them, vet them. It's a small industry. It's not that hard to vet them, okay? That is critical. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no one else approaching the podium, Ms. Kerfman, is there anybody online?
No hands are raised. Thank you.
With that, public comments on this item is now closed. If there's nothing else, we'll take a motion to direct staff to proceed with the process of recruiting an executive director as provided. We had a motion from Board Member Cruz. I heard a second from Board Member Vice Chair Turkin. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. We're now moving on to item 14A, discussion and consideration of purchase of 417, 445, and 521 North Federal Highway, 520 and 522 Northeast 5th Avenue, and 511 and 522 Northeast 4th Street, aka the Hall properties.
Rather than having everybody going back through that, Vicky, can you pull up the location map for just quick clarification of where we're located? We were approached back in, we actually received an offer in April of 2023 in the amount of $9.5 million. We went and got a proposal or an appraisal that valued the properties at $5.1 million due to the disparity between the appraised value and what they were looking for. This wasn't brought before the board. However, we have received a revised proposal that is before you tonight, in which they are asking for let's put this way, $6,247,500, which is about roughly 22.5% above appraised value. And they've had some about 22.5% above appraised value. We have a representative from the Hall family here tonight, I believe, maybe online. Is that Jessica?
Yes, Ms. Hall is online.
Of which that proposal, there was an option one, basically one payment, which we currently do not have budgeted. So it's not really an option that we would be able to proceed with. However, they did provide an option two, which would provide roughly $2.85 million up front, which would include $300,000 deposit within 5 days of a contract execution, as well as $100,000 additional deposit within 5 days of acceptance and waiver of feasibility period. And then within the second year, we would provide $3 million due upon deliverance of the parcels in 2025, with the inclusion of a 7% holding fee. There are a total of 7 parcels as a part of this. As a part of the proposal, they said that they would be willing to look at possibly looking at certain parcels if the board would be amenable to that, as opposed to as a total take it or leave it. The 2 properties along the railroad tracks are currently zoned C4 general commercial, and the other 5 properties are currently zoned CBD central business district. The future land use per CRA plan would be potential of a mixed use medium, which would be about 50 units per acre. So that's the offer that's in front of you tonight, and a representative can discuss any questions that you may have.
Thank you. But before we turn to that representative, let me just ask from my colleagues, is there anybody here who would like to hear from the representative? Okay, if you change your mind, let us know. I'm sure they're still online. Let's begin on my right this time. Board Member Cruz, any initial impressions, positions?
Thank you, Mayor. Board Chair. Tim,
Yes.
I do have a question. What would happen? I understand we have a couple of tenants in the adjacent spaces. What would happen to the tenants that are currently in those spaces?
For the proposal that the properties would be delivered without a tenant, but what's the actually, you'd have to discuss that with, I mean, you'd have to ask the representative as far as what's going on there.
I'm not a fan of displacing local businesses, unfortunately. And that is something that I wouldn't be in favor of doing. In addition to that, just, can you go back to the map? Sorry. Yep. The area on the inside that's owned by someone else and it's not. Is it currently for sale or not currently?
Oh, you mean the between?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's currently owned by another entity, and they currently lease that out. I believe it's Southern Golf Cart, and as well as some other businesses in there as well.
And we don't expect, I mean, they're a local business that's currently doing well.
From my understanding, yes.
Yes. So with that being said, I mean, when we try to look at larger properties, I mean, that's a pretty large chunk of property to be knowing that there's a current business in there and they're doing well. We don't want to displace those businesses. I would, in addition to that, there's that 22.5% over appraised value, which is a bit high in my opinion. I wouldn't like to go over 10% ever if we could avoid it. The only thing I would maybe look at is the lots on the left-hand side for, smaller purchases. But then again, we still have the issue of the golf cart business being in the middle and we don't want to displace them. So I think for me right now, I would not be interested in moving forward with this today.
Thank you, Board Member Cruz. Vice Chair?
I agree with a portion of what Board Member Cruz said. You look at this, hard to do anything, especially with those 2 parcels that are in between. I would probably be open to maybe some of these parcels, maybe north of Veterans Park. We all know Fish Depot is an absolute staple in the city, and would hate to see them go. I just don't. What I don't want to happen is someone else purchases these properties. And is this within Live Local? Catherine, do you know? It's commercial.
It is.
I think there's still, so you could, someone else could come and purchase these properties and then, you get, was it 50 units an acre? Is that
Well, you could actually,
more?
you could actually, it could go, I think it's within a mile of a
mile?
higher, more.
It's the maximum zoning for residential within the city, and then the height is within a 1 mile radius, so long as you stay within the boundaries of the municipality.
Right. So 50 units an acre, I think, and then up to 100 feet. So a part of me wants to purchase that. So that way we have some form of, control if, there's anything that comes up in the future. So I would be open to maybe some of these parcels. obviously that would need to be negotiated with purchase price. I don't think I could swallow 22% over appraised value. That number is going to change if we looked at different parcels. Maybe north of Veterans Park, maybe Fish Depot. And then, what is it, 522 Northeast 4th Street. So I'm open to something for sure, but it depends on what my colleagues think.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Board Member Hay.
Yeah, I look at these properties and they're not what I consider contiguous, but then again, kind of sort of agree with what's been said thus far. The money is not there. That's a biggie. I do feel that property is a high commodity item, and you should get it when you can. But in this case, I don't want to go that high above appraisal value. 20% is normally my max. So if I had to make a choice, I would try for I agree with the vice chair there, that the property north of Tom Kaiser Park would probably be the best if we could get anything. I'm not sure they want to break it up. Do you know anything about separation of these properties, Tim? Would they?
I don't have any idea of how or what would be acceptable to them. Again, that would have to be a further discussion, and probably with Jessica, based upon what it is you all would like to look at or entertain.
I would like to see you use your expertise and be a used car salesman and try to talk them into selling those two north of the park there at a reasonable amount. Because if we ever want to expand that park, okay, that would be the ideal property to own right next to it. And again, you're talking about prime property on that. Is that US 1? Yeah.
Yes, it is.
I think if we could control some of those properties, we have a say-so into what goes there and what it looks like. But I say, ideally, it would be great to have all 7 or how many. I don't know what number it is, but I don't think we are able to at this time. So I would be in favor of negotiating and giving you the leadway to negotiate and try to get those 2 north of the park. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is, we're in the business of acquiring property, but I just feel like for the cost to shut down businesses, local businesses in our city, I struggle with that when they're viable buildings that are housing some of our local businesses. But at the same time, I believe one of the properties that is north of the park is vacant. And then the one next to it has an arcade in it, which, if I remember correctly, I think the last time we were at Veterans Park, they were moving in. So I think they're a relatively new tenant, although they could have just been getting new office furniture. But I would be interested to see how the seller or the owners would propose or be amenable to splitting them up in moving forward. If that's, I would not be in favor of purchasing all of them. I think that's, if down the line in 2 years, I mean, they've been sitting for this long, if we have more acquisition money left over and we can pick up a parcel here or there, I'd be in favor. But I'm curious to see, Tim, going back to them and seeing if you split up the northernmost parcels and the southernmost parcels and the west parcel, how that plays, or what they would even be willing to bundle outside of the 7. Because I'm not in favor of moving forward with the full purchase. I think that although we are in the business of acquisition, we also need to be responsible about that, and we don't know what else is going to come up. But Tim, I remember in our agenda review, you did have a conversation with city staff, and they weren't about these parcels, and in particular about the ones north of Veterans Park, and they weren't really that excited about the potential for acquiring this land. Is that my understanding?
Well, it was what could be done with it, and the potential, I think, is unrealized what you all would envision. I had broached the subject of possibly parking, because I know that parking may be an issue over here. But, another surface lot may not be, a solution, especially of that size. So completely up to y'all. I mean, we can take a look and see if they'd be amenable to separating out and however you want to see it, and come back to y'all if they're willing to entertain that.
So I heard 3 members of the board that are, although not interested in the full acquisition, but are interested in other possibilities. So I think there is the majority there to do some further exploration. As for myself, let me just say that before I can be comfortable with an acquisition, I would need to know what the plan is first, then acquire, not acquire, then come up with a plan afterwards. Not to say that that can't ever change. There might be circumstances where that needs to occur, but I would just feel more comfortable if I knew why we were acquiring it in the first place. But that is my personal position. And with that, there is a majority consensus for the direction to explore other combinations. Council?
Board chairs, this is a formal proposition before the board. I would ask you to take comment. You do not need to provide a motion, as the board is not taking action, but as it is a
Take comment
proposition.
anyway. Yeah, sure. All right, with that, the floor is open for public comment on this item. Please approach the podium if you'd like to speak. Seeing no one approaching the podium, is there anyone with their digital hands raised?
No hands are raised at this time.
All right, with that, public comments is now closed on this item. And Tim, you have sufficient clarity in the direction?
I would like a little bit of direction on which ones you would like to focus on by the board.
Well, would it be,
Because I'd hate to bring it back with a multitude of options.
I heard from my colleagues' interest in these parcels adjacent to the park.
Okay.
However, if my colleagues are okay, why don't we just entertain what the seller is willing to do?
For each individual, I was thinking even what each individual parcel would be, what they would be willing on each one, so that we can, maybe there's another vacant lot that we can pick up that's vacant that we don't have a tenant in. And so maybe that would be, and so then that way you're not trying to read our minds. And
we'll see what they're willing to work with us on. They may say that they're, so we'll see how they're willing to work with us.
All right. Thank you, everybody. That concludes that item. We're now going to proceed to 15A, the boat parade recap.
Yay.
Good evening, board. Mercedes Coppin, Business Development and Promotions Manager. So we had the 51st annual Boynton Beach Boat Parade on December 8th. It was absolutely fantastic. Thank you to each of you for coming out and being a judge at the event. This year, we were happy to be able to promote some of our local businesses. We had a showcase on the event site at the Boynton Harbor Marina of Artsy Living Studio, as well as Shur's Chocolate and Common Grounds Roastery. Additionally, Tiki Taxi and Cruises did sell out for their boat to participate in the parade. So that was awesome. I know for years residents have been asking, how can they get into the boat parade without a vessel? And now we have that option. So it's absolutely fabulous.
Awesome.
And then also, of course, we promoted our waterfront restaurants, Two Georges, Banana Boat, as well as Prime Catch. As far as the participants for the event, we had 34 participants that we actually handed out boat numbers to, and that's how many we actually judged. So we were happy to have them all come through. We had some excellent entries this year, some new entries, new captains out there. We're really excited. We will be announcing the winners on January 10th. We're going to be hosted at Del Fuego in Delray Beach. And that's really it. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
I'll try to be there. You said Del Fuego?
Yes, absolutely. If you'd like, I can go ahead and send you an invitation as we did last year.
Thank you. I think I was there last year.
Yes, you were.
Yes.
Yes.
I,
Would each of you want an invitation to the awards dinner?
That would be great.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, Jen,
Oh,
what?
We'll be at Palm Beach County Days.
Palm Beach County Days.
Oh, bummer.
Bummer. Yeah.
We'll celebrate in your honor.
Yeah.
Anything for Mercedes, ladies and gents?
Thank
Just
you. Sorry.
Outstanding. It was just, it was beautiful. And I like the setup that you guys had with the tables and everything, and
Yeah.
little hand food there. All that was just great.
Oh,
I
thank you.
did like having to walk all the way around. Now, I understand it. You control the traffic that way, and that really worked.
Yes.
So, job well done.
Thank
as
you very
always.
much. Thank you.
Thank you so much to
Thank you,
everyone who
Mercedes.
worked on the
Thank you,
event.
staff.
You guys are
Thank you. It
amazing.
was definitely a team effort.
Thank you for the parking too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're very welcome. All right. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you, Mercedes. Now, before we adjourn, I do want to just inform my colleagues of one item. If you could take a look at the calendar, we're not making a decision this evening. I just want to inform you that March and April, the timing of those two meetings in blue, the blue is our CRA board meeting. It is relatively close. It is tight for staff to prepare the material for one meeting after another. Tim, is this correct? You said March and April, correct?
On June.
Go ahead, Vicki.
And also,
November and December? Oh, yes.
yes, November into December because
All right.
of the Thanksgiving holiday.
That's correct. So we've got March and April and November and December. So nothing to discuss or decide today, but keep in mind so we can discuss in the future meeting potential dates. So just giving you a heads up to check your calendars in advance. All right.
Okay.
All right. With that, may I have a motion to adjourn? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor to adjourn say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much, everybody.